Welcome to Ladyguns Live, Episode 7. My name is Deneen Tomlin, tonight's host and founder of Ladyguns. What is Ladyguns? We are a community of shooting, hunting, and outdoor enthusiasts who like to get off the sidelines and live our best life. Casey and I are shooting competitors, instructors, hunters, and mentors, and we love inviting women to just get out and give it a go. Tonight, we have decided it's time to celebrate our furry friends. As outdoors people, we like to take them hiking, hunting, and camping. They are members of our family and what they often rule the couch. The more they can get into, the happier they are. And tonight we're going to learn about how to deal with that. Joining us is Dr. Tom Leboleus, owner of Woodlands Veterinary Hospital here in Calgary. Tom has been taking care of my dogs for almost 20 years and is also a fellow hunter and gun dog owner. Hello, Tom. How are you doing? You're on mute because I told you. We also have TJ Schwanky from the Outdoor Quest TV show to share with us the story of his long battle on getting Alberta to legalize the use of pack dogs in the support of big game hunters and how it saves grizzly bears. Hello, TJ. Welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me here.
So we're really excited to have conversations with both of you today, but I also have to share with you guys, as usual, I'm joined this evening by my co-host and co-founder of Ladyguns, Miss Casey Gavinchuk. She will also be tonight's Q&A coordinator.
Hello, this is Sam.
And this is Sam. Thanks, Sam, for joining us. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is move over to our interview with Dr. Leboleus and a little bit of an introduction, Tom, before we get you going. So Tom graduated from the Western College of Veterinary Medicine 25 years ago.
Yep.
He's been in... You're laughing. Is that not true? That's the information you gave me.
It is true, but I just don't know where a quarter century went.
So you've been in Calgary for 21 years at the
Yep.
Woodlands Veterinary Hospital and Animal Dental Center. You've been hunting for 40 years and you grew up in a hunting family and a wide scope of practice, been the chairperson for the Animal Welfare Committee, the Companion Animal Committee for the Alberta Veterinary Medical Association. You currently sit on the Tribunal Board and is past president of the Calgary Academy of Veterinary Medicine. So Tom currently owns a Labrador, a large Munsterlander, a cat, and several horses, and also has a lovely wife and a couple of kids. So
all that is true
for joining us. All true. Well, I hope so because you gave it to me. I just read it. So.
Exactly.
All right. So Tom, so to get us started, tell us about those areas of specialty at the clinic, and we also want to hear about your dogs. You've chosen a Munsterlander and a Labrador. So why them?
Well, I grew up with labs and spaniels, and I've had labs, for 35 years easily, and always one or two at a time. Pre-COVID, I wanted to get into a slightly different breed. In Alberta, I was spending more time with upland hunting than I was with waterfowl. And so I went for a more versatile, well, my labs have always been good at upland, but a more versatile breed and something that's a little different. So went for a pointing dog.
Excellent. And how's he coming along?
Great, actually. She's enough. Yeah, it's okay. Interestingly enough, she's awesome on water retrieves. And I saw my deficiencies on Saturday when I had her out with a bunch of other pointers for upland. We need a lot of work. And it means less time at work, more time in the field, I think.
Well, I know a whole lot of people that can volunteer to help out with that upland problem for sure. So
yeah.
All right.
I look forward to it.
Awesome. So tell us about the areas of specialty at the clinic and your background with dogs, and especially hunting dogs.
Well, so Woodlands, one of the appeals when I moved to Calgary was I always had a big focus on dentistry. And, I'd say the vast majority of problems that we see with people's pets are related to dental disease and weight issues. And so one of my partners is a dental specialist. So we do everything related to dentistry, including maxillofacial surgery, fractures, cancer, periodontal disease, some orthodontics, and endodontics too, depending on the need. So root canals, crown application, especially for working dogs, can be important. My side The general vet side is the routine things like elective surgeries, vaccinations, parasite control. But I also do, eye surgery, some chemotherapy, cancer surgery, mm, soft tissue, like specialized things like thyroid surgery, parathyroid surgery. I graduated at a time where there weren't a lot of available specialists. And so, really, if you didn't learn how to do it yourself, including some orthopedics, there really wasn't anyone around to hold your hand. And I'm still pretty confident at a lot of that stuff.
Right. And as I mentioned, I mean, I've been coming to your clinic for 20 years with my previous dog and my current dog. So
Good.
thankfully, we haven't had to ask you about all that specialty work because I've had some incredibly healthy dogs. So
Well, and that's what we hope for, right? I mean,
of
I'm
course.
happy if there's 10 years of medical history and a couple sheets of notes, because it
Hmm.
means everything's been going the way it's supposed to be going.
Right, right. So when we come and see you, we usually talk about a couple of things. And right now it's spring, so we talk about things like ticks and
Yep.
getting outdoors. And so what I'd like to do with our time today is talk about those things that us outdoorsy people find that our dogs get into and how to deal with them. So let's start with ticks. It is spring.
Sure.
What do we need to know about them? How do we find them on the dog? And then how do we deal with them?
So the most common type of tick that we have here is a genus called Dermacenter, and it's the one that we're used to if you grew up in the prairies. It's the big one that you can feel even moving on your body. If it bites in and is left there in a dog, it'll become grape sized before it drops off. And so if you're out hiking, if you're out hunting, fly fishing, anything, even in the backyard, if you're going through your pet's coat routinely, you're going to feel them. You really can't miss them because they're a small grape. The good news is in the Calgary area, they're not spreading disease. And we'll get into pros and cons of tick prevention. But when I say Calgary area, it means other places they are. And so for me, I'm generally more concerned about ticks Saskatchewan and east because of sheer volume, and say Sicamous and west and south from there because in the Kamloops area, wood ticks are spreading something called tick paralysis to dogs and to people as well. And it causes some neurologic deficits in people until you find the tick and remove it. And so
And
locally, the tick we're worried about would be deer ticks, which can carry Lyme disease, which is a major problem for people, less so for dogs, in as much as 1.5 to about 3.5% of the Alberta deer ticks are Lyme positive, but only 5% of dogs with Lyme disease are clinically symptomatic. And so when we have a tick season that starts when it's above 4 degrees and ends when it's below 4 degrees consistently, which can go from March till December, in truth, I tend to be more reactive for ticks rather than proactive. So out of the couple thousand dogs I see in a year, maybe 10 will have ticks. So I find it hard to recommend routine tick prevention unless your dog is regularly getting ticks.
right. So when we do find them, how do we remove them? What's the best way to get them off the dog?
Well, the great news with the wood ticks, which would be by far the most common ones, they have really short mouth parts. And so the fear of leaving the mouth parts behind is really overblown for wood ticks. So you just grasp them around the body, either with your thumb and forefinger, try not to squeeze them, or you can use tweezers and just pull them straight out slowly and then
Awesome.
dispose of them, either by burning them, flushing them down the toilet. Don't let them go because they'll just live and crawl around and lay their eggs and
Right.
got more.
We took one off the dog, and my son put it in the fireplace and said he sent it to hell. So I think he disposed of it.
Well, and as opposed to sending it to hell, you can send it to the tick surveillance program in the province. So your local vet clinic can submit them for analysis to make sure that it isn't a deer tick and that it's not Lyme positive. Because without the surveillance programs, we're not going to know when we start to see a higher percent of positive ticks, where I'll change what I'm doing and start to recommend tick prevention on a more proactive basis.
Right. Right.
There's
Well,
this,
I'll tell him to save one next time, Tom.
well,
Hopefully we
and,
don't come across it. Right.
but the deer ticks are so small, you're not likely to find them because they're
Uh,
about the size of a sesame seed. And in most dogs, because of how thick their coat is, you're just not likely to come across them.
Right. Yeah, I've only found those bigger ones. You're absolutely
Yep.
right. So let's move on to another critter that we've all encountered one way or the other, skunks. And my question
Yeah.
about skunks is, how do you get rid of the smell? And more importantly, when it sprays our dogs in the face, does it actually do any harm, or is it just a bad, foul-smelling little critter?
Just a foul-smelling, bad little critter, actually.
Okay.
They don't. I mean, those are scent glands. It's like the dog's anal glands, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those stink badly enough. But it's obviously a defensive mechanism for skunks. I kind of actually like them as an animal, but growing up in Manitoba, a lot were rabid, and that would be a concern locally too. But in terms of kind of cleaning up your dog, one of the best mixtures is a liter of hydrogen peroxide mixed with a quarter cup of baking soda and a teaspoon of Dawn liquid dish soap. And then
Excellent.
mix it up, bathe your dog, let it sit there for about 10 to 15 minutes, rinse thoroughly, repeat it, rinse that thoroughly, and then switch to a regular dog shampoo to clean them up.
Excellent. I've used it, and Tara says she's used it. It works great. So we
It
drink
does.
the tomato juice and we wash that on the
That's what you
dogs.
make your Caesars with after you bathe your
That's
dog.
that's right. Excellent advice. All right, let's move on to the next one. And this is one that I've unfortunately encountered far too many times when we've been hunting upland dogs is porcupines.
Yep.
So these dogs are super prey driven, very adventurous, and they go after birds anywhere. So we end up with a dog full of quills. And so the question is, what is the right way to remove that quill, and what tools should we be carrying with us? And then how do we know if this is something we should be seeing a vet about or not?
All great questions. I mean, my first experience with a dog and a porcupine, unfortunately, I had nothing because of where I wasn't expecting it. I wound up using my fingers initially, and because of the snow falling, I couldn't grip the quills anymore. I used my teeth until I could get back to my truck where I had some pliers. And so now when I'm in the field, I carry like a Leatherman or a needle nose pliers equivalent. And if one of my dogs finds a porcupine, I start with the mouth because that would be the most uncomfortable place. Tongue, lips, inside the cheeks, and I grasp them close to the skin, and I give them a quarter turn as I'm pulling them out backwards because there's a barb on the end, of course. And so the dangers with quills that you don't find would be that they can migrate. And so even if I think I've got them all, I'll still feel the skin in that area because they'll just keep moving forwards, following the direction of the barb. And sometimes if you have one that broke off, you can feel the barb a day or two later poking through the skin. Although I've never seen it, there are stories of dogs where the quills migrate down the neck, through the chest, and into the heart and end up killing them. And so when do you need to see a vet? I think anytime a dog gets quilled, it's worth getting them in, having them checked out, unless you know for sure there are only a few. There's been a bunch of dogs I've had to sedate where I've removed 80 to 100 plus quills in one go. And that would be very hard for anyone to do without sedating that pet in terms of pain management.
Right. We had a puppy once during an upland hunt that literally jumped on a porcupine, hundreds of quills, and we had to do a tailgate removal, and that puppy was running around like nothing happened to him the next day. So
yeah, they're not toxic.
Yeah.
It's just the risk of them migrating that's the biggest problem.
Right, and I have heard that. So thank you for that. Yeah, they're. I mean, I'd like to leave porcupines where they are, but sometimes the dogs definitely want to go investigate. So somebody had just asked Casey, what was that about worrying about infection? I think that was a question.
Yeah, Tara was asking if you have to worry about infection.
And that's a fair question. And we're really trying to move away from, I mean, if we ever did throw antibiotics at everything under the sun, we're trying to move more away from that because of bacterial resistance and its effects on people and pets. I think it depends on what you're actually seeing. So if there's just a few and they're in the mouth, well, the mouth's a pretty dirty part of the body anyways. So I wouldn't typically do a systemic antibiotic for something like that. If I've got a situation like your puppy where there are hundreds, I might look at a light hitter, broad spectrum antibiotic just to make sure there wasn't anything that gets inoculated because of that. Partial thickness skin versus full thickness skin and the risk of abscess might also dictate what decisions I make.
Excellent. Thank you. Great question, Tara.
Yeah, it was.
So actually, that leads us to the next series of questions, and it's about first aid. So those of us who go camping and hiking and hunting, we should ideally have a first aid kit for the humans and something in addition for our dogs. And so,
Yep.
the question is always, what should I be packing in that, and what gear is recommended? I know having upland dogs that get crazy in the dry brush in the fall, we take extra baby t-shirts for them, because there's been dogs that they rub their chests raw, and so we put these baby t-shirts on them. We've used baby socks for broken toenails and various things like that. But I'm sure there's a lot of things you could recommend, Tom. So what do you recommend that we pack with us?
Well, and so, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with what you said for general protection. When you think of stubble fields and things like that, sometimes boots will help, right? Because these dogs go pretty hard, and, half a day to a full day out in the field. But when I think about the first aid kit that I haul around, is actually not too dissimilar to what I would use for people, depending on the situation. So, bandaging material, the equivalent of vet wrap, gauze, a triple antibiotic ointment like polysporin or equivalent for open wounds.
What about pain meds? Do you carry like baby aspirin or anything?
Well, and that's a good one too. So you can safely give dogs aspirin, and so I do aminosyl salicylic acid
Mm-hmm.
and Tylenol, so acetaminophen, but not ibuprofen. Okay.
Okay.
In the absence of other good drugs like Medicam, Deramax, some of the standard Rimadyl, some of the standard non-steroidal anti-inflammatories that you pick up from a veterinary hospital. But if push comes to shove, you can use some of those other ones at proper dosing, and don't extrapolate based on the size of your dog relative to how big you are. The dosing is very different for people and for pets. But they're a good thing to have around if push came to shove. But even something as simple as like an eye wash bottle, because you can use it to wash out open wounds and try to get rid of debris in them, bacteria within them, before you try to put a bandage over top of it. Splinting material.
Oh, did he freeze up for everybody else? I think we've got a moment. There we go. Are you back with
Am I
us,
back?
Tom? Yeah, you are back. Splinting
Okay.
material. Sorry, that's
Yeah,
where you were.
splinting materials even can be like a rolled up magazine with tape around it, like duct tape or some fabric straps, just to help to support the limb if there happened to go out and break something. Someone was asking about flail chest and harrow tines and stuff like that, and that becomes a lot more difficult, because once you've got a penetrating chest wound, whether it's a shot wound or piece of metal or something like that, as soon as you get air entering the chest, you've got a real emergency. And so sometimes knowing what clinics might be around where you're out in the field, whether it's hiking, biking, hunting, kind of having some sense as to where you could go, no different than for us if something bad happened, isn't a horrible idea. I carry some over-the-counter topical antibiotic eye drops. As I said, triple antibiotic ointment like polysporin or equivalent. Ear wash solution.
Right. Well, I was going to say we've had dogs that I've had the pleasure of hunting with that their eyelids get filled with seed pods, and we've had to do a
Yep.
lot of seed pod extraction. So that eye wash would be super handy. The other thing that I just picked up is a small pair of clippers for clipping the hair, a little battery operated one, clipping the hair around the injured area so that you can deal with it. Or in the case of springers, they've taken every seed pod and burr from the field and brought it to your truck. So,
Well,
sometimes you need a little help. Tweezers, good one, yeah.
And I mean, for me, I also carry a small vial of local anesthetic and a small suture pack.
How about a stapler?
And, interestingly, I was thinking about that. It depends on the size of the wound, because although it's a good idea, if it's that deep that you're looking at stapling, unless you've really cleaned that wound out thoroughly, by closing it up, now you're sealing bacteria in.
Right. Makes sense.
So it might be better just to wash it out, clean it out like crazy, put a pressure bandage on it if it's bleeding, and get into a vet clinic.
Right, right. Well, so the other day, speaking of treating an injury, the other day I got a phone call from a friend. Her Labrador had split her toenails, and so
Mm.
this young pup was bleeding. The toenails had split, and it was just taking a run outside on the asphalt, and so she was panic stricken, and she was like, "What do I do?" So, what do you tell people to do when their dog's toenails have split and the quick is basically bleeding?
Bandage, you
Yeah,
know, quick stop or equivalent. Those dipstick pencils that guys sometimes might have around for shaving if they nick themselves. You can even use a bar of soap and jam the bleeding nail into a bar of soap just to
oh,
put pressure on it. Flour, cornstarch, and then bandaging. Anything to help to try to plug up the bleeding surface of the nail.
right. So the quick clot would be a good one to add
Yep.
to the kit as well.
Quick stop or equivalent. I think pet
Right.
stores or probably Amazon will have that.
Right. Excellent. So, one other piece, I had the opportunity to join a Zoom call with a dog club a week ago, and they were talking about hunting and snaring and
Yep.
trapping. And basically, for those of us who take our dogs out in the wild, if they get mixed up in one of these things, what do we do? And so, carrying a pair of wire snips, very specific to cut the snare, was one of those other recommendations for those of us who get out in those areas. So I
Yep.
thought that was a good one too. So what about dehydration? So we're running our dogs, and how do we know if and when they're dehydrated, and then how do we treat it, Tom?
Well, that's a tough one because some dogs will just like they're so work driven that it's hard to know that there's a problem until it's almost too late. And I'm going to add in hypoglycemia as well because I've seen dogs out in the field that start to stagger around like they're drunk because their blood sugar's so low. And so, stopping, making sure they've got access to water, ability to drink. And, depending on where you're shooting, there might always be irrigation canals or potholes that they can drink out of. Um, and so, usually dehydration isn't as much as of an issue as maybe low blood sugar. And so, giving them snacks periodically if they're done for the day, offer them some food before you drive back to the city, just so they get some calories in. Um, I know that I've breasted out some game in the past just to give them something immediately if I happen to forget to take some kibble or dog treats with me into the field.
Right. We use boiled eggs a lot
Yep.
when we're hunting, so they're good, and they don't mind the shell.
No, when I was saying potholes, you also have to look at the time of the year and the heat. Typically, when you're looking at upland season, stuff like blue-green algae in the potholes on leased land may not be a problem in the fall, but it sure is in hot summertime, late July, August. And
Right.
and there's three different types. They all secrete a certain type of toxin that has either fast death factor or very fast death factor, which is why you hear of some dogs and even livestock dying in the prairies in the summertime.
That is an excellent point, because it was actually one of my next questions is the most common outdoor poison hazards like stagnant water, and the other questions are about plants.
Yeah.
And poisonous creatures. And then the funniest one, and I don't mean to laugh at my dog, but when he got stung by a bee, he looked really funny. So should we be concerned about poisonous creatures as well?
Yeah. So, Alberta, we're lucky enough to have rattlesnakes,
Aren't
primarily, I
we?
think, down in the southeast corner. So, south of Cypress Hills, I understand. Don't quote me on that. But Milk River, Many Berries, that area, you can drive down the highway and see rattlesnakes. Obviously, they're a problem for pets. Bees, wasps, hornets can cause allergic reactions for us. I know that people can certainly carry EpiPens for themselves. I would not recommend doing that for your pet. If you can get some Benadryl tablets or your favorite type of antihistamine, if there's some stinging that happens, if you administer it prior to the swelling happening, you're kind of thwarting the histamine release and then the swelling that ensues.
Excellent advice. That is wonderful. I wasn't even thinking about those darn rattlesnakes, and you're absolutely right. And when we chat with TJ, I know he spends a lot of time in antelope country, so I think they share a lot of the same terrain.
Yeah,
So
yeah, they do.
Yeah, yeah. So I think we're coming into the end of our 30 minutes here, Tom. So is there anything else, common issues that you've seen in your practice that we haven't discussed? I know my question was about treats. We all love treating our dogs,
Yep.
and and I won't get into the food because there's always lots to talk about there. But when it comes to treating your dogs, what's a good treat? And I'll share with you guys one of the things I learned was I thought giving the dog, the bone out of your barbecue steak was a lovely treat, and then I found out that it was hazardous to my dog's health because it'd been cooked. So, what do you recommend, Tom, for treats for those little guys?
There's lots of good options, and sometimes for treats for my own dogs, I'll just leave it at their dog food because I know that they like it. I know that their gut tolerates it. I know that there's no added colors like artificial coloring or flavoring to it that I might otherwise be concerned about. But there's a ton of good options out there. I think that verbal praise and treating dogs and positive reinforcement of them doing what they want to do, plus the interaction. They love it if you give them a snack. And so, they're going to react positively. You're going to react positively because they're happy. I would encourage it. But remember how I said earlier that weight and dental disease are a couple of the most common problems I see with people's pets. So just really keep a close eye on how much you're treating your pets or how much food they're getting. All breeds should have a visible waist behind the ribs from the top and the side. With light pressure, you should find their ribs without having to dig. And when you're mentioning bones, for me, I would never recommend them in clear conscience because I recognize that there's thousands of dogs who chew bones with impunity. I know that they do help to slow down the progression of dental disease, but I see so many dogs with broken teeth that require either root canals or extraction because of them, or they swallow them and they get a gastrointestinal foreign body they have to go in surgically and remove. It's great if everything goes well. It's not so much fun if you're spending thousands on oral surgery or exploratory surgery to fix these problems.
Wonderful. I'll stick with carrots. My dog's a happy guy when he eats carrots. So
yeah, fruit. You're right. Fruits, veggies. There's
yeah.
nothing wrong with them. Bananas, fattening, avocados, not that great. Obviously, currants, raisins, grapes. They're huge no-nos because of kidney disease. Yep.
Yeah, chocolate, grapes, raisins, currants. We
Yep.
definitely keep those away from the dog around here. So
And we were talking about we were talking about porcupine, but what about cactus?
Well, and you do see those. Where was I? I saw some the other day locally. I can't remember where I was hiking, but they're out there. But the same thing would apply. If you've got tweezers in your first aid kit or on your person when you're out hiking with them, you would just grab them, pull them straight out.
That's a great question, Casey. We had one afternoon hunting in Montana where the dogs were so prey driven that they were running across fields of cactuses and they weren't even slowing down. So they'll definitely get those little things in their paws. So so Casey, have you got any other questions that we didn't get a chance to answer while we were going along? I think we did a good chance of grabbing them while they were part of the conversation.
Yeah. I think Tara was asking what upland meant when we were talking about upland hunting.
Right.
So for the sake of the video, we could probably answer that one.
Sure, absolutely. So so we've got a couple of different kinds of hunting that we use dogs for here in the province, and this is actually a great segue because we're going to go over to TJ. But upland hunting is where we use dogs to flush upland game birds, and so that would be in the prairies and in sometimes the forested areas, and those are grouse and pheasants and Hungarian partridge, those kind of birds, and then waterfowling is where we use the dogs to retrieve the ducks and the geese. They don't typically flush them because those birds are flying high in the sky, and we bring them down for the hunt. So I think those are the two kind of areas of dogs that we were primarily talking about in this, as well as our favorite fur baby pets that we take everywhere and put in our tents and our trailers and everything else as we're journeying around and adventuring. So any other last questions for Dr. Leboleus?
I don't think so.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Tom. Such a pleasure. I appreciate you
All mine.
joining us, and I appreciate you inviting me to go hunting with you. So thank you very much. I do. I think we got some really good information today. So
Good.
I totally appreciate it. Thanks so much. So we're going to
You're
move
welcome.
on
My
now
pleasure.
over to TJ. So thanks so much.
You're welcome.
All right. Okay, so TJ, here I'm gonna take a crack at introducing you, but I think there's a lot to talk about. So our next guest, and I'm very excited to have you with us, TJ, is the host of Outdoor Quest TV, and that's Canada's longest-running independently produced hunting series. And I believe you're currently in your 22nd or 23rd year of broadcast. So that's amazing. Now, TJ's co-host and partner, Vanessa, is also an amazing outdoors woman and hunter, and she was our very first guest before Ladyguns Live even existed. So that's pretty cool. So TJ has hunted 6 different continents, is one of Canada's most prolific outdoor writers. He is a regular seminar speaker at sportsman's shows across North America when shows are back happening again. The host of Thompson Center's Outdoor Quest on Men's Channel in the US and on Wild TV here in Canada. And he is the human of a border collie named Jet. And if you follow TJ on social media, you'll know that Jet goes everywhere that TJ goes. So thank you very much, TJ, for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure. And I mean, I do love talking about dogs. And I mean, I've certainly had border collies all my life. Started with them just as working dogs with cattle and sheep and things like that. Also had black labs most of my life for waterfowl and upland hunting. And right now we're just with the border collie. And he got kind of thrust into a new position in life when we kind of moved off the ranch. And all of a sudden I discovered pack dogs, which aren't dogs that run in packs, but they're dogs that carry packs. And Jet happened to be the dog I had at the time. So he became kind of the poster pack dog for Alberta.
Right, he's the spokes dog. So hopefully he'll come visit you sometime tonight. We'll get a sense to get an opportunity to meet him. But so yeah, you've had the opportunity to do an immense number of things in the great outdoors, and I know that you have worked with a number of dogs in your hunting experiences, both locally and internationally. And I'd really love to hear your take on what it's like to work with a hunting dog.
Well, I mean, it's so cool. And I didn't know anything about pack dogs. And a good friend of mine in the Yukon invited me up on a Dall sheep hunt about 15 years ago. I guess his son was an outfitter up there. And we went hunting. And Paul had a golden retriever that he'd used for packing. And he had a golden retriever before that he'd used extensively for packing. And that was kind of my first introduction to pack dogs. And, you know, certainly the primary purpose of the pack dogs was to pack weight. And they're a great asset when you're on week-long or 10-day long backpack trips. But I also found out that there was a lot more to using pack dogs. And, you know, anybody who owns a dog knows what a great companion they are. And having a great companion in the mountains is phenomenal. Having a dog with, you know, a nose that's 100 times greater than yours and ears that are 100 times greater than yours, you'll never sleep better in a tent at night. There's no sense me listening for bears at night because Jet's going to let me know long before. And so it really started to get excited about this. And we'd use dogs in other continents for blood tracking and things like that, which is kind of a natural progression from the packing dogs as well, is some of them are used for blood tracking as well. It's currently legal in Alberta to use a blood tracking dog, but it's something we're working on. But so I was all excited. I came back from the Yukon. I'm going to get a pack dog. All right. Because I'm a big sheep hunter. I love sheep hunting. We do a lot of 7-10-day backpack trips. And this was going to be the best thing in the world. Well, much to my surprise, I found out it was illegal for a big game hunter to be accompanied by a dog. And this law dated back to 1906. And the law was to prevent people from using dogs for running deer and things like that, which made perfect sense. And that's not what we were trying to. So I thought it would be a pretty simple process to get this changed. Well, 13 years later.
Oh my gosh.
2020 was the first year we were permitted to actually be accompanied by a dog. It's only in the 400 WMUs, which the wildlife management units in Alberta, which are the mountain units. So that was kind of the first step. It's not part of the Wildlife Act yet or anything else. This was just a ministerial order. And Minister Nixon had a very sympathetic ear to our cause. He believed in pack dogs, and I'd been a friend of Minister Nixon's for quite a while before. I discussed pack dogs with him a lot. So when he became minister, he said, "This is stupid." He says, "We need to get this done, but it's terribly onerous to try and change the Wildlife Act in Alberta." So he just brought a ministerial order in. So the next step now is to get it into the Wildlife Act, so it'll be protected ever. The problem right now is if Minister Nixon changes portfolios, the next minister could rescind the order just as quickly.
Right, right. So just for the benefit of those of us on this call tonight that aren't necessarily familiar with how dogs can be used in hunting in Alberta, there's only a couple of ways we can use them, right?
Yeah, so bird dogs for sure, for upland and waterfowl hunting.
Mhm.
Cougar hunters can use them for pursuing cougars. And now, as a big game hunter in the 400 WMUs, we can be accompanied by a dog. We can also use dogs for hunting rabbits as well. So there are quite a few guys with beagles kind of quietly doing it in Alberta. So
Right. I hadn't even thought of that. So yeah, so those are the ways that we can use hunting dogs. And so the addition of pack dogs not only helps by carrying your stuff, and you said being your eyes and ears in the tent. What are the other benefits of having pack dog when you're a big game hunter?
well, I kind of want to preface everything by these are well-trained dogs. Having a poorly trained dog in the mountains, especially in bear country, is a recipe for disaster. When I say a well-trained dog, pack dogs don't really need to know a lot. They need to be able to lay down, they need to be able to stay, and they need to be able to come. But they need to be able to do it every time with one ask, no matter what the situation is. So I just want to preface it with that because we talk about bears and dogs, and there's a lot of talk about bad bear incidents, bears chasing dogs back to people and things like that. And with an untrained dog in the mountains in bear country, you are asking for trouble. But with a well-trained dog, you're actually setting yourself up for a lot more success, because the biggest thing in bear country is knowing the bear's there first. So you can prepare yourself for a bear encounter. Rarely will anything ever go wrong. It's when you come across a bear in surprise or something like that that you're going to get in trouble with the bear. So the greatest asset I've found, and we've trained Jet from day one. So Jet was trained when he was a little tiny puppy, when he saw deer, when he saw sheep, when he saw goats. He was to lay quietly and just to look at them. And if you know what border collies are like, you'll know what a challenge that was. But he does it well.
Yes, I do.
But we also taught him when he saw bears, it was okay to growl or bark. And not to chase, but to growl or bark. So it sounds like a lot of minutia in the training there, but it really wasn't. He caught on super quick to it. So now the way he is, if he barks at night in the tent, I'll guarantee, well, he's kind of getting a little old and maybe senile now, but for the first 10 years of his life, if he barked in the tent at night, I'll guarantee there was a bear nearby. So at least we could prepare ourselves for the fact there was a bear. And I mean, bad bear encounters in the backcountry are really rare. And if you're aware of the bear in the present there, the chances of it actually going wrong are really slim. The other thing is bears are inherently afraid of dogs just because wolves will kill bears. So
Really?
Yeah. So if you've got a dog that will stand its ground and bark and growl, pretty rare for a bear to ever come in. Where you get in trouble is if you get a small dog, chases a bear out, gets afraid, and then starts running back. Well, the first response of the bear is that dog turns from predator to prey pretty quickly and will chase it back. But if your dog will stand its ground. So we were in the Yukon one time, just sitting around the campfire in the evening. It was still light. And Paul's dog all of a sudden started to get very agitated. And he goes, there's a bear here. And within minutes, we had a bear come strolling right into camp, just with no fear. And Molly just stood her ground, barked and growled at it. We threw some rocks at the bear, and situation was avoided. And we've had several encounters like that in Alberta, very close encounters with bears. And even though we couldn't use Jet for hunting in Alberta, we took him to the Yukon, we took him to the BC on hunting trips, and he went on every camping trip and hike we went on in the summer. So he had a lot of exposure to the mountains and to bears and everything else. So there's just a lot of safety comes with it. And just, I can't say enough about the companionship. I mean, a lot of sheep hunters, a lot of mountain hunters are solo hunters.
Right.
And it can get pretty lonely up there at night, and you're hearing things in the night and everything else. And just having a dog there, like I say, you will never sleep as soundly in a tent at night as you will with a dog at your side.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing those stories. So I actually quoted one of the articles you wrote about saving grizzlies' lives. So I think you've kind of touched on that, but specifically, how is it saving their life that you have a pack dog?
You're teaching bears not to become habituated to humans. So humans are bad because they have dogs with them. And also, if a bear gets in an encounter with a human, chances that bear being destroyed are pretty high. So I don't want to see any bears killed. I would rather much mitigate the situation long before it happens. So I think just the training process with the bears that humans aren't to be habituated with, and then again, just stopping any problems from ever happening. Those bears can go about their lives, we can go about our lives, and coexist pretty peacefully.
Right, right. Excellent. So we were talking earlier, TJ, about with Tom about canine first aid kits. What do you pack
Well,
for Jet and in the first aid realm?
yeah, so I mean, our kits are pretty Spartan just because of the fact we're packing everything's on our back. So I like to carry some vet wrap with me. We carry some gabapentin with us, just as a painkiller. It's an easy one to use. Metacam works good, but you have to have a syringe, and it usually ends up breaking in your pack somewhere or something like that. I carry some forceps with me just for pulling porcupine quills out, which I've had to do. We talked about cactus, things like that, and we carry a little bit of suture. And our vet gave us a little bit of just a broad spectrum antibiotics, creams, and things like that. So I would say it probably all fits into probably 10 or 12 ounces. Like,
and does Jet carry his own first aid kit? That's my question.
One thing I will warn you about with pack dogs is you don't want to put anything in them that's moisture sensitive, because guaranteed on a hot day in the mountains that dog's going to be in a creek somewhere. So everything in his packs is in Ziplocs and double Ziplocked, and anything that's valuable goes in our packs. And he can carry our freeze dried food and stuff like that. That's all sealed.
Well, so talking about that, I know you guys have done some gear reviews with Jet. So tell us about the gear. There's some people here that might want to get some packs for their dogs to go hiking. What do you recommend?
Yeah, so I mean, kind of the three main brands are Herta, Roughwear, and Wilderness Wanderer. So if you've got a smaller dog, say, sub 60, 70 pounds, it seems like the Herta and the Roughwear packs are probably the best. We use the Roughwear pack a lot. Jet's only 60 pounds, so he's not a big dog. And so he's got a 10-liter pack, so I can put enough food for 10 days in there. I can put a sleeping pad in there with him, and he can carry enough for he'll be self-sustaining going in, and then on the way out he can help. If we happen to shoot something or something like that, he can pack that. For the bigger dogs, like those 80 to I've seen guys pack dogs up to 140 pounds, and on those, that Wilderness Wanderer pack is it's an awesome pack. It's really big. It's designed for carrying weight. And I guess I just want to preface about packing your dogs. When you start packing your dogs when they're young, like the 1-2 years old, we just ran our dogs with empty packs just to get them used to the packs. Then we slowly started to build the weight up. I would never put more than 25% of my dog's body weight on a pack. I know some guys pack 30, 40% on some of the really big bone dogs, but Jet's size, we try to keep it 15 to 20% of his body weight. So at 50 pounds, he can carry 10 to 15 pounds all day long, no problem. So the other really important thing with the packs is how so the packs actually, there's a harness that fits the dog, and then the packs clip onto the harness. So anytime we stop for a break, we always take his weight off, but we don't, if it's cool out, we don't always have to take his harness off. So maybe we're only stopping for 15 or 20 minutes. I'll just clip the packs off so he gets a bit of a break from the weight. Now, if it's hot out, we stop quite often, because you got to remember, he's a heavy coated dog to start with, and now he's got this big harness and packs on, so he can overheat pretty quickly. So anytime we stop for a break, for water, anything like that, I always take the packs off him, make sure he's cooled.
That's excellent advice, and you actually answered my two questions, which was the weight, how much do you put on a dog, and how the harness versus pack situation was kind of set up. I'm used to packs on horses, not on dogs, and so or on people. So I wasn't sure how that was all set up. So
the harness system that holds the pack it's really well designed for them, but it's got a front and a back cinch just like you would on horses, and a bit of a breast collar. So it's a very similar setup, other than the packs themselves actually just clip on. So the other thing to do is put your heavier stuff towards the inside on the bottom of the side packs. And as you pack up on those side packs, put your lighter stuff. And then sometimes we'll top pack, his sleeping pad or something like that on top. But anything you put right on top their back, you want to be really, really light.
Right. So you've mentioned his sleeping pad, so he gets his own bed
Oh,
while you guys are out there.
oh God, yeah. Now that he's getting older, he's got his own jammies too. So it's, but he's 12 years old now, and we actually took him on a pretty good pack trip last year. And we don't pack him heavy anymore, so we maybe only pack 4 or 5 pounds on him now. He's at 12 years old. He's earned his keep, but he still loves to go, still does well. But at night, he does like to have a comfortable spot. And if it's cold at night, we usually throw one of our jackets or something like that over to keep him warm. I mean, he is there to work, and I have no illusions that he's a working dog first, but he's still part of the family, so he gets treated like that.
Of course. I think we're all in the same boat there, TJ. No
Yeah.
worries.
I guess the only other
So
thing I want to talk about quickly would be food for them.
yeah.
So we typically take about 150% of what his normal rations would be. So like he eats 2 cups a day is what he eats at home. So we'd take 3 cups a day for him on a pack trip. And just because he's working that much harder, and he is always starving on pack trips. And we'll take a little bit of treats just sometime, 2 or 3 hours into a hike, and we'll probably use some higher sugar treats and things like that maybe aren't necessarily good for dogs. But on a hike like this, he is burning so many calories, and it's
Mhm.
just trying to keep him full, trying to keep him full of energy. And
That's great advice. Thank you
yeah,
very much. Yeah, that is really good advice. I hadn't even thought about that, but you're right. We take lots of snacks for ourselves as we're hiking because we burn it off pretty quickly. So yeah, it's good advice for dogs.
and he loves berries. He loves eating blueberries. He loves eating raspberries or strawberries. So anytime we find those on the trail, he fills up on those pretty quickly too. So he's kind of learned to be a pretty good forager now too out there, that he'll find stuff to eat for himself when he's hungry too.
That is fantastic. So, what do you think is the next steps then for getting the pack dog an official status in Alberta?
We're working currently with Minister Nixon on it. They're looking at opening up the Wildlife Act probably next year to change a lot of things. Our Wildlife Act is so antiquated. A lot of the laws date back to the early 1900s, and it have never been updated, have never been changed. So they're looking at opening up the act, and as long as Minister Nixon's still there, which my fingers are crossed he is, then it will be put in there. So currently, we're really pushing to have it province-wide. Right now, it's just was a trial. It was kind of stupid the way it just kind of got some of the lawmakers digging their heels in, and it was going to be the worst thing that ever happened. There was going to be dogs running everywhere, and to my knowledge, at the end of hunting season, and I talked to all the enforcement guys, there had not been one complaint about a hunter using a pack dog. I mean, certainly there's always campers and issues with hikers and things like that, but an actual hunter using a dog, there had not been a single complaint. So I think we assuaged a lot of the fears of, things were going to run amok out there, because, if you're going on a sheep hunt or any high mountain hunt, the last thing in the world you want is a dog ruining your hunt. So most of the guys who don't have good, well-trained dogs, leave them at home just as they should. And those of us that are serious about using dogs in the mountains, our dogs aren't ever going to cause any problems.
Right, right. Well, I wish you the best of luck, and I hope that goes really well, because you're right. It does sound quite antiquated, and I think it sounds like it's a benefit to both the human and the wildlife when you have a well-trained dog out there. And I'm all for the border collies. I think they're great dogs too. So,
I don't know if I'd
uh,
recommend it if somebody was buying a dog as a pack dog. There's probably some stouter, better breeds to use, but like I say, Jet just kind of got thrown into the fray, and
yeah,
he kind of became the official mascot for Alberta for pack dogs. So
yeah, he's the poster boy for sure.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
tell us a little bit about your plans for your next adventures with Jet. I know we've got the COVID restrictions on us right now. So locally, what do you guys think you're going to be doing? And then as borders open up, where are you going to head off? I know you guys love going to Africa. Do you have some big plans as that goes?
Yeah, I mean, we always love to hunt sheep here in Alberta. We love the backpack trips. We've been working with a couple of horses this year, some young horses. We'll probably do a little bit more horseback hunting in the mountains as well. So, Jet will definitely be able to come along in the backpack trips. I don't think he's quite spry enough to come on the horse trips anymore. But so, yeah, we'll be doing that for sure. We've got quite a bit of priority for quite a few hunts here in Alberta, big game hunts. And so we'll be doing that. Doing a fair bit of waterfowl. Again, we kind of got back into waterfowl hunting this year, or in 2020, just because we had to. We have to produce 13 episodes for our TV show every year. And with not being able to travel, we had, I think, 3 big hunts canceled on us that we couldn't travel to. So thankfully we had some good friends in the waterfowl world and went out and did some waterfowl hunting and had a ton of fun doing it again. So we'll be out doing that. We've got a trip booked for an ibex hunt in Spain for March. We're hoping to go to Africa again in May or June. And then I think we might go to Turkey in December. That's all of 2021. So that's kind of where the planning's at now. As we all know, during COVID, plans are very fluid.
Absolutely. That sounds like a ton of adventures. I personally would love to do Africa and a red stag or something like that up in northern Scotland. So those are on my list for sure. So, but as I meet up you guys, my list keeps growing because it sounds fantastic. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
It's good. It's good to have bucket lists. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So does anybody out there have any questions for TJ about pack dogs or hunting or international travel with dogs? I know Jet's been on a few kind of big hunts, and packing up a dog, that takes a bit. I've never put a dog on a plane personally, so you might have some recommendations about taking a dog on trips, TJ.
We haven't actually ever had him on a commercial plane. He's been on so many float planes. It's unbelievable. And it's funny now when the float planes come in to get us and he'll start swimming out to try and get up on the pontoons of the plane as it's coming in. He just loves to fly so much. But he was in his first plane when he was, I think he was 9 months old, and has just loved to fly ever since. And I don't know, one thing we always do when we fly with him is plug his ears. He's one of those dogs with big ears and very sensitive ears. So we always put earplugs in his ears, and that was one thing that really calmed him from day one. And if you've been in many float planes, you know how loud they can be. So.
Yeah. So human earplugs?
Yeah. Just the ones with the strings on them, just so they don't get lost down in there somewhere. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. I was wondering about that. I've seen dogs in planes wearing ear protection, and so yeah, that's probably a very good recommendation. I'm sure, Tom, you might have a comment about whether we should be stuffing things in dogs' ears, but you're on mute, so we'll just leave.
But I can fix that easily.
That's fantastic. Anybody else have any questions or comments or thoughts about this topic? Sounds like we've covered everything. TJ, that was so thorough, and I thank you so much for thinking about everything that I didn't put in my list of questions that I sent to you. So I totally appreciate the time with you, TJ. You've got so much that we could talk about, and Vanessa as well. So maybe we'll get you guys on another episode of Ladyguns Live, and we can explore some other areas of your adventures. That would be totally cool. So thank you, Tom, and thank you, TJ, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
We really, really appreciate it. And
I have a question, actually.
Oh yeah, Casey, let's.
Where can we find your TV show?
Oh, so our TV show airs on Sportsman Channel Canada here in Canada. We just moved over there actually last year, so this is our second season on there, and our anchor time, I guess, is Thursday and Sunday, but we air 4 times a week on there. So.
I've found you also on YouTube. There's episodes there that you can watch.
Yeah, we think we've got about 100 episodes uploaded on our YouTube channel. So it's just Outdoor Quest TV.
Absolutely. And so while we're at it, you're also on social media?
Oh, yeah, too much. But we have Outdoor Quest TV. We have Facebook and Instagram and sometimes Twitter, but not very much.
All right. And Tom, if we want to find you, we can find you at the vet clinic, I think.
Yeah.
Woodbine.
Nowadays, it's so busy.
But do you have a website? Dogs. Do you have a website for the clinic?
Yeah, woodlandsvet.com.
And that's in South Calgary. So if anybody's
Southwest. Interested.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thanks. Good question, Casey. All right. So let's just switch over to a couple of announcements and upcoming events. So we know that as the weather is opening up, shooting events and shooting leagues are coming for us to get involved in. So a couple of things you might want to check out. The AHIA Ladies Trap League starts in DeWinton in the first week of May. So coming up real quick. And the junior shoot at at Silver Willow Sporting Clays is every Sunday. The junior shooter for kids from 12 to 18, I believe. And then the ladies learn to shoot at Silver Willow Sporting Clays is every Sunday in June. So all of these events are for new and first-time shooters. They're easy. They're really soft to get into. No stress, all fun. So if you're interested in trying a few things out, there's a couple of other events on the pistol side of things coming up in a couple of different ranges in southern Alberta. So stay tuned. They're just keeping me apprised of the situation as the Alberta health rules open up. So as usual, we're always looking for ambassadors, content creators, and special guests for Ladyguns Live. So please send us a note or hit me up on Instagram if you're interested in being a part of the Ladyguns tribe. And the last announcement, we're really excited to share with you the next Ladyguns Live guests. It will be right before Mother's Day. So we have a mother-daughter group coming, and it's on Tuesday, May 4th. So we're moving to Tuesdays because, of course, we're all going to be shooting trap on Wednesdays in Ahia. So on Tuesday, May 4th, we're going to have special guests Gwen and Andrea Day from the Silver Willow Sporting Club in Carstairs, Alberta. And what we're going to talk about is how the Day family turned their 5th generation family farm into one of Canada's most unique and prestigious shotgun sports facilities that operates completely off the grid 12 months of the year. Lots to talk about there. We're going to learn how they balanced raising a family, competing in shotgun sports, and growing a business, which, if you don't know, was both a sporting clays club and a golf club at the same time for a period of time there. So Silver Willow embraces the shooters of the shotgun community, and they continue with their vision to embrace women and youth in the sport by hosting the events I shared with you. So we hope that you join us and have a chat with Gwen and Andrea and talk about all those exciting things. So if you register for our newsletter on our website, you're going to get the updates in your inbox for Ladyguns. And so once again, I'd like to thank you all for joining us on this episode of Ladyguns Live. I encourage all of you to get out there and find a way to get off the sidelines, live your best life, and hopefully Casey and I'll see you while you're out there doing that. Remember, we can be found on the web. We can be found on Facebook. We can be found on Instagram and Pinterest. If you are watching this on YouTube, please like, follow, comment, and share. Have a great evening, and we will see you next time on Ladyguns Live.